Hola, Mark. Thanks for joining me
Hola.
for a cafecito.
I know I have my green tea today in my
Oh,
music mug,
a
my
very, I
beautiful mug.
love it. I love
I
it. I
know.
love it. Your beverage of choice. And we're actually recording this at a time when I would normally have it in the afternoon. It's very comforting
Perfect
for me.
timing.
Oh, Mark, you are joining me from Music City. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Are you okay? How's the heat wave right now? What's
Oh boy.
next?
Well, okay, so we got lucky because the past few days have been pretty nice. Actually, the humidity has not been insane, but about a week ago, it was pretty wild. It was pretty brutal. I mean, it's like I'm assuming, you've been to Nashville around this time too. You walk outside and you just kind of get drenched. It's a little gross, but we still love it here in Nashville.
Well, thanks for seeing me.
Yeah,
Smack in the middle of your summer. We're talking about something really exciting that you and I have shared clients that have been a part of this special project that you're about and that we're going to talk about. But before we
sure.
do, I'd love for our listeners to get to know you as an artist, you as a voice coach, and all of the wonderful things that you have your hands in, and why you are in Nashville, Tennessee, doing what you do.
Wow. Okay. Well, I don't know where to start, but I will say that I've always been really passionate about bringing people together. I've always felt like I've had a talent for that, and it's just something that I've always loved to do. And music is one of those things that I have seen and witnessed as a healer and just a real tool to be able to bring a community together. So I guess I'll start back on how I began my musical career, but I started off like most younger people, doing musical theater, playing the piano, kind of exploring that a little bit. And then I had the opportunity to go to the Governor's School of the Arts in Pennsylvania, which wound up being in Pittsburgh. And at that point, I had not really performed a whole lot except for in theater, but I did have the opportunity to premiere a new musical that was written with some people from Disney. And it was a really, really professional experience. And from that point on, I kind of knew that I wanted to do music full time. So I went on this crazy path, and if we had 3 hours, I could tell you everything. But basically, I didn't have much training when I was younger, other than a couple of years of piano lessons, and certainly didn't have any voice lessons. I wish, I had had that earlier on, but that led me to a degree in vocal performance, which was a classical degree. At the time, this is how naive, and you're gonna laugh at this. I was so naive to what that meant that I didn't even understand that I had to be in operas. Like I didn't know that I had to be on stage performing operas. I just thought that I would learn how to sing better, and that's kind of how it was. So
Well,
uh,
that's how it was for a lot of us.
I know, right? It's like, I guess now with more technology and social media, we maybe have greater access to those
Yeah.
things and that information. But so that was really new to me, and at the time, again, like hilarious. I couldn't even produce vibrato very well. Like it was pretty wild. And here I am being thrust on a stage singing opera. So I was in Virginia, which is nearby you.
Yeah.
I was actually at James Madison University. I
Mhm.
went there for my undergrad in vocal performance, and then wound up getting a minor in communication sciences and disorders. And so earlier on, and I still continue this, just maybe not so much on my day to day, but earlier on, I really discovered the connection, again, through healing between music and science, and how we could relate to that, and how it affects people with Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's and all those kinds of things. And that actually led me to I don't think we've discussed this before, but that led me to an experience in Virginia at the RMH hospital with oncology patients. So I actually did a lot of different musical experiences with them, and that was a really beautiful experience as well. So anyway, one thing led to the next. I found my way in grad school at Ohio State, doing vocal performance again at a master's level. I was able to receive another master's in vocal pedagogy, teaching the voice, and then something called the singing health specialization, which is voice science. And all along the way, I enjoyed such an eclectic background of music that I was like producing in the studio. I was doing vocal arrangements. I was accompanying people. I was doing my own session work. I mean, anything that I could do to be musical, I was trying to do it. And I didn't really know what that accumulated to, but I was trying to learn as much as I could and get as much experience outside of just simply singing opera as I possibly could. So I was even in the lab. I spent about 100 hours in the operating room, just observing vocal surgeries, and also in the clinic working with other voice specialists. And then when I graduated, I thought, I have this skill set in a very wide variety of styles and whatnot. and a background in vocal pedagogy. And I thought, well, I need to immerse myself in a musical city to just be able to see artists through the fruition of their career, and also have an artist career myself. And so at the time, I had mentors that were guiding me, and I knew I didn't want to go to New York because I'd been on the East Coast, and LA, I almost took the jump and went out to LA, but I wasn't really certain. And someone told me to go to Nashville, and I thought it was just this podunk, like country bumpkin town that like, there was nothing going on, really. Again, very naive, until I realized what all was happening down here. And I got a job at Belmont University, and then the rest was history. So been able to come down here and work, did a bunch of session work. I'm doing a lot of co-writing now. More recently, I've been producing some tracks and some EPs. So it's been a wild ride. Yeah.
Wow. So what a rich musical background, everything from performance to science and everything in between. I gotta ask, and I know this changes in seasons, what's the music that makes you come alive right now that you're really
Oh my gosh.
So are you producing the music that you really enjoy, or are you just kind of you like, sure, I'll help whoever? Like what's making you come alive right now?
Melissa, I love that question. And I love that you said that it changes in seasons, because it's so true. You know, I had some friends going through school that like they truthfully listened to opera music while they were working out, like operas and stuff. And I was like, are you kidding me? How can you possibly? And now, of course, I've done that a couple of times too. But I think you're right. It does go in waves. At the moment, I'm working with a really fabulous 15-year-old from Phoenix, Arizona. Her name is Brooklyn. And she has a very like classic 90s R&B, lots of runs and riffs, whistle notes, that kind of feel. And I'm just deeply, deeply immersed into that kind of music. I've been writing with her, I'm producing her tracks. And that's just been kind of on my mind a lot recently. Yeah, I think just like it's just consumed me, I think, and it's really yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love it. I know I always say it's sometimes it's my Achilles heel that I do love so many different genres of music.
Yeah.
You know, even though I'm a contemporary voice teacher, and I even have a client right now who's working through This Place Is Mine from Phantom the Musical, which was a piece I did in my senior recital. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So she's
Yeah.
a beautiful, very contemporary musical theater singer, but she's wanted to dabble in opera technique, and this is like
Wow.
a little gateway. So it's funny, right? Like certain things evoke different emotions, and you can appreciate them. And I love that right now you are feeling your 90s R&B self.
Yes, I'm in that vibe for now.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you talked about this, this wonderful artist that you're working with, which got you now, these are the kind of artists you're working with a fabulous organization in Nashville. Can you tell us some more about what you're doing with young artists like Brooklyn?
Yeah. So I think there's two little quick stories I'd like to tell. I kind of would like to tell the origin of how Brooklyn and I got together, because that's kind of funny. And then also how we developed this New Roots organization with my business partner. So Sheridan, my co-founder of New Roots, we actually came to Nashville for very similar reasons. And when I came down to Nashville, I had the goal of creating a program, which I eventually did, called Vocal 360. And that was the idea that I wanted to work with artists to help define their legacy voice and what that meant as a holistic artist. And that's the way that you hold yourself, the brand, that you embody, how you speak, what it looks like on social media, what you write about, your message, and so on. And so I wound up creating a program here in town and brought in now the artist that Sheridan manages. I brought her in as one of my first artists to do a big showcase and performance here. And one thing led to the next. And then Sheridan and I sat down in her living room, and we're supposed to write a song together. And rather than write a song together, we wound up coming up with an entire business plan and a business. So I like to say it's like the best song we never wrote or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
But exactly. Yeah. So it kind of came to fruition in a unique way, because we were having this discussion about, the struggles of an artist and how we live a lot of our life trying to be the people that we wish we had going through the musical career that we've gone through. And so that sort of birthed New Roots. As a part of that experience, and in order to put together the pieces. We literally sat on opposite ends of her sofa in her living room. I'm calling a producer, she's calling a songwriting friend. I'm calling some of my current voice students to see if they'd be willing to come to Nashville. She's calling, so on and so forth. And so that's how Brooklyn actually got the chance to come to Nashville. So my relationship with Brooklyn is actually really unique because during COVID, I had actually put on Instagram, like, hey, I'm offering voice lessons. And because everyone's having a difficult time during COVID, I'm willing to offer a discount, so that we can all kind of, continue this and not feel overwhelmed by the cost of continuing music, right? So her mom reached out to me and said, hey, would you ever be willing to teach my daughter? She's 12 years old. Now, at the point that I'm in my teaching, I don't typically teach younger singers, not because I'm not capable and not because I don't have a heart for it, but it's just not the resources that I have. Oftentimes, and you know this too, teaching online, if I'm going to teach a 10 or 12-year-old from another state, teaching them online, it's just not the same as doing it in person. So I told her, I said, listen, Amber, I really appreciate you reaching out, but that's just not something that I do. And she said, I really do think she would be good. She has a great voice. And again, I was like, no, but completely without me prompting it, she sent me videos of Brooklyn singing. And she was singing like Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey and Ariana Grande with whistle notes and stuff at like 12 years old. And so I saw that and very quickly was like, maybe we should set up a call,
Nobody loves you like your mama.
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So Amber knew what she was doing, I think, to help promote her. But yeah, I mean, it's just been such a beautiful relationship. And then I was able to, at the fruition of our program, say to Brooklyn and Amber, hey, we've been only working together for a few months, but would you ever be interested in coming to Nashville and doing this thing with us? And so they said yes, and we could give them some scholarship. And she was, I believe, one of the first scholarship recipients we had at Roots. So yeah.
Wow.
And just,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a wonderful story. Again, of the tenacity of the mom, but also of, just taking a leap of faith for you when it's something that you weren't sure about. So New Roots Nashville, like what is the mission statement and how, tell us more about the origin story. Excuse me. And so what's the purpose? What are you guys doing for these young artists?
So I am going to make a promise to my co-founder here that I will not butcher the word for word mission statement. So I will tell you what it is word for word, and then I'll explain it. But our mission is to provide female artists with the education and community needed to confidently advance their music career in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment. And so basically what that is, Sheridan and I got together and we wanted to make sure that we had a place for female artists to be able to come to Nashville and obviously use our resources beyond, but to be able to feel like there's a community that they can ask questions. Being in the academic system, I spent many, many years teaching to textbooks or teaching based off of my own information, but I sort of gathered that these students were receiving information from academia, and it's very, very valuable, but they weren't necessarily able to ask the questions that they would need to ask when they're out doing the thing, And so believe it or not, a fair majority of our initial artists were students coming from the colleges saying like, I learned more in this sync licensing hour that I had with so-and-so than I did in like most of my course at XYZ University. So it's really been a beautiful experience. And so what we've done, and I'll kind of explain the weekend and how it works. It's been fascinating. We've had artists from 23 different states so far come to Nashville. They fly in on Thursday night. They stay in a gorgeous Airbnb right in town. It's right off of Music Row, which is very famous with all the big studios and stuff. It's actually fun. When you drive down Music Row, you'll see all the big #1 signs from all the artists and stuff and their studios that are there. So that's kind of cool. So they fly in, they all stay together in an Airbnb. It's really beautiful. The following morning, we kick off the morning with a handful of coaches that come into the studio, and they talk to the artists about songwriting, sync licensing, management, like releasing the song. Then we do vocal coaching. Obviously, I do a handful of different things on vocal coaching. We talk about social media, how to handle social media. And, a lot of times for younger people, as comfortable as they are using it, it's not necessarily integrated into their livelihood, in their artistry. And as you and I both know, that is a really good resource and a good tool for them to expand upon their network. So we talk about how to integrate that. And then on Saturday, the artists actually come into, we work out of Starstruck Studios here in Nashville, which is Reba McEntire's studio, which is pretty fun, gorgeous place. We bring in a stylist, so they get to get styled and they talk about their brand, and then they get a really beautiful and professional photo shoot. They'll see some live events and stuff downtown in the evenings, and then Sundays are big day in the studio where we record. So each of the artists will have the opportunity to record the vocals to the song of their choice. And then in the evening, we actually have a big showcase where all of the current artists and our alumni come back and perform. And the cool thing about what we've developed is we really want this to be community centered. So once the artists leave the weekend, we actually have a long like Excel spreadsheet that we continuously update. And that has all of the contacts of the people that we've vetted that we feel are good for the female artists we've worked with. So yeah, it's a pretty, I don't want to say intense because that gives like a negative perspective on it, I think, but it's a pretty involved weekend and just so lush and really wonderful, and a safe space for people to ask a lot of questions. You know?
Absolutely. Like my little 21-year-old heart is fluttering had I had a chance like that, right?
I know,
And
right?
you are focused on just females at the moment, correct? Female artists.
Yes, and part of that is the resources that we have. So between Sheridan and I, we pulled together sort of our resources in the music industry. And when we first started, we thought, you know, she came up with the idea because she's like, I've had such a specific struggle being a female in the music industry, and there's a cohort of my other friends and family that have felt that similar struggle. And so she talked about looking around and not finding those resources that could help her. So we figured this is a great place to start, helping a really wonderful group of people. Let's see what we can do. And so the good news is we've become successful, and we want to continue with that. As it currently stands, our resources are for female artists, but that doesn't mean that our resources can't apply to all artists.
Sure. I mean, and I applaud you, even if you feel as you continue and see the mission evolve, if it stays that way, I still think it is very, noteworthy, because you get to see it. I mean, there's probably a sweet spot for them to see a male artist, a male professional champion women in business and in this industry. And how empowering that is, and to give them a voice and give them space, like you said, to share their music unapologetically themselves and really just allow them to share their music in a very fresh and authentic way. What being someone smack in the middle of this industry right there in Nashville, and people still, I say Nashville, and that'll still evoke either certain genres of music, certain musicians, So somebody may be listening to this thinking, oh, young female country artist, which is so very stereotypical, of Music City. But what are some of the genres? Tell me is it pretty eclectic, or how, what are the kind of artists that you guys have actually had the chance to work with?
Okay, so in terms of the music that's being made in Nashville, it really is a concoction of all different genres. Now, it's not going to be quite like Atlanta where you get some of the hip hop and that kind of scene. But here in Nashville, I mean, you can walk down the road and see everything from obviously country, pop, rock. There's tons of blues and bluegrass. I mean, you can really just explore and find a lot of different genres. Now, the beauty of what we've curated with our program is that the artists that we're bringing in as coaches and as mentors for these other performers and musicians, they span multiple different genres. So they're country, they're R&B, they're pop, they're so on. And so there's kind of this unique thing that's happened, and there's a bit of a through line through all of it. And I think that's kind of the thing that we want to pass along, is like at the peak of all genres of music is a similar form of artistry. And that's communicating an emotion and a message, right? Yes, exactly. I mean,
I could scream like my body's emoting.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm very super passionate about that, if you can't tell, but I love that. So do you that unifies everybody in the room regardless?
Totally. And it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is. One of the things that we really love are the people that have a story to tell, and have something to share. One of the exercises that we do, it's a little bit more involved than this, but the basics are, we will sit down with an artist and we will say like, what are you writing about? Or what kind of things have you gone through that someone else can learn from or benefit from? And then we create this avatar for the demographic or the person that would be listening to your music. And so when you go through that, you say, hey, I've written a song that's about XYZ, this kind of breakup at this point in my life that did whatever. And you're finding that person that you're speaking to, and once you move on from there, then, I mean, my goodness, you can curate an entire marketing plan to be able to speak to those people and to help those people. So we've had artists that are in, let's see, we had an R&B singer from DC. We have a pop R&B singer from Phoenix. We had a country singer from Montana. We had a singer-songwriter like kind of alt pop from New York City. We have like more of like a bubblegum pop kind of singer from Florida. I mean, like, it's been all over the place, but it's so much fun, and getting them into the same space, they really start to morph, and there's some really beautiful synergy that happens.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, I love it. What are some of the other, so you mentioned brand awareness, stylizing, vocal coach sessions, studio sessions. What are some of the other arms of the professionals that these artists have access to? Do they get performance training? Do they get,
Yeah.
I mean, do you even touch on performance anxiety and mental health of the artists? What are all the
Yes.
arms of professionals that they have access to?
So that is great. And I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because that is our next direction. What we currently have, like, we have a performance coach, Wynn, who's fantastic, who's worked with us in the past and will probably continue to work with us in the future. She comes in and she'll set the artist up with a microphone or their guitar or whatever in a big open space and say, okay, put on a show. Like, what does that look like? How do you control your body? What kind of emotions are you giving off, and how does that present itself naturally? So they are getting some of that work. We also have one-on-one mentorship that both my partner Sheridan and I share. And in those conversations, we'll talk to the artists and we'll say, like, why are you doing music? What makes you want to perform? Why are you sharing your music with other people? And in those conversations, we address more unofficially, obviously we're not doctors, but we're unofficially addressing the why of their music and starting to uncover what they're going through and what is sort of driving their artistry, and how they're navigating that process. The next step for us, though, is to actually have mental health counseling, because as we all know, that is a major part of our industry. And while we touch on it in terms of the mentorship and saying, hey, do this thing and don't do this thing based off of our experience, or, we've lived through this and here's what we've found to be really helpful. That is kind of the next step for us. And we're hoping that later down the line that we can sort of expand on those things.
Beautiful. I mean, talk about holistic care for the artist.
I know,
think
right?
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you.
What's one of your favorite success stories that have come out of this? And success, I mean, that word is very broad.
Yeah.
Success may say, oh, did they sign a record deal? Or it could, I mean, success can also be, you see this artist, you saw them where they came in, and you see what they're doing now, whether it's in Nashville or somewhere or their respective hometown. What's one of your favorite stories that have come out of this?
Yeah, I love that. So two things come to mind. There's one artist that, well, I'll start with Abby first. I probably shouldn't name names. Sorry, Abby. You're the first one, maybe the last.
Promotion.
Yeah, right. Abby is just a wonderful person, and is here in Nashville. She came to our program having not done what's called a writer's round before here in Nashville. And if you're not familiar with what a writer's round is, it's a performance where 3 or maybe 4 people sit on a stage on stools usually, and they have their guitar, piano, and they just talk about their music and they play a song. And then once they're done the song, it goes to the next person, and then it just goes a line, and you go in a round. Each person plays a song. You play about 3 or 4 songs in a setting. And it's a really beautiful, intimate way of connecting with artists and learning about their background, and then discovering new artists and so on. And so that's a really big staple here in Nashville. And it's a big leap to be able to go from, going through academia to then now performing and really being an authentic artist. So she had never even approached that kind of performing before, having prior to New Roots. immediately after going through New Roots, I don't know what got into her, but she was booked like week after week after week. She just went through all of the rounds in town. She was performing out of town. It was just like, you saw this person who was extremely talented, and she didn't quite have the perspective on how good she was. And then like a couple months later, all of a sudden, she was inviting us to things, and introducing us to people. And it's like, what an incredible moment for her, just in a few months. And, she dedicates that to the inspiration and the positivity that she felt in some of her experiences with us, which we're very grateful for. And the fact that she felt, empowered to be able to do that. So that's really fun. And she's always a great staple to have with us at our performances. The other artist that I'm thinking of actually came from New York. This artist is a scholarship student of ours, and moved from New York City. Well, excuse me, first came from New York City to our program. They participated in our program as a scholarship student, was discovered or rediscovered perhaps at the time by Cara Diaguardi. And Cara Diaguardi, if you don't know, was on American Idol as a judge for a couple of years, and was responsible for like Gail, the big artist. She just got over 1 billion streams on her song ABCDFU now. Halsey, John Bellion, all these major people. So Cara had agreed to be a coach at our program, rediscovered this artist, offered them the opportunity to come to Nashville and live in Nashville. That artist stayed at a place that Cara was helping to support for quite some time, and then wound up signing a deal here in Nashville. So that was incredible, because again, in just a few months, it was like, we saw this artist in October, they moved down here a couple months later, 6 to 8 months later, they have a deal, and they're just, shooting high now. So it's pretty crazy. And, we don't take any of that credit except for the fact of giving them the opportunity to discover what they already have. And so that's where we are really passionate about, letting them explore that and giving them the opportunity. The biggest thing for us is like, there are artists out there that just don't have the opportunity to share their voice. So they just don't have access to these resources. And so we sort of want to be a beacon for that, to help share in all of that.
Beautiful. You said something that is so key. And I think you would probably agree to this as a voice teacher and in our communities of voice professionals, musicians, of discovering what you already have.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not, you're going to come in here and we're going to fix you. Like you said, is we're going to show you your potential, and show you everything at your disposal. And you are more than capable, right, of accessing it and having the career of your dreams. I think, wow, super powerful. So there is a 20-something-year-old artist listening to this and just itching inside. Tell us about the application process. Where do they go? Maybe they're not an artist, but they're either a professional who wants to collaborate with this organization, or in some other form or fashion. How do we get a hold of New Roots?
For sure. So our website is wearenewroots.com. And if you just scroll down from the main page, you can see the big Apply Now button. And our upcoming event is going to be this October 12th through the 16th. Anybody that is interested, actually, we're open to literally anybody that would like to collaborate or shares a similar mission or viewpoint on what we're trying to accomplish and vision for the future, rather. So yeah, we're open to that. You can reach out to us at info@wearenewroots.com would be a resource for you too, to connect. But definitely go on our website. The application process is, it's getting a little bit more involved, and it's not to like remove the accessibility for people, but what we really want to learn is, we want to know, like, why are you doing music? Because our program is intended to take you to the next level. And while we support artists that are saying, I really like to sing, and I sing in my living room, but I really don't want to make a career out of it, that's okay. We have resources for that too. But part of the application process is to say, like, have you performed before? Is it your intention to go on and perform or make music and share, and so on and so forth? And there's a section of that that also says, like, what do you envision your life to be like with music? One of the big things that I talk about in my mentorship is, what do you envision your life being like? Like, what is the lifestyle you'd like to live? And that comes as a relationship that I had with going through university is like, you go to college to become a something, you go to law school to become a lawyer, and I feel like I went to school to become an opera singer, and then I looked for the job and I was like, ooh, that's not entirely what I want. What
Uh-huh.
else do we have, So yeah, so that is a part of the application process too. And that all allows us to help really find the people that have something to share, and give them the opportunity to come to Nashville.
Sure. Okay, well, you heard it first. We're going to put all this in the show notes so that you can access that and connect with Mark, with Sheridan, with New Roots on social media as well. Mark, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to
Oh
share.
yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for the work that you're doing again to empower women and to empower women in music and artists the way that you are doing. Thank you so much.
Oh yeah, thank you. No, this has been great, and I love chatting with you.